This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Evan Knox. Evan is a fourth-generation entrepreneur and founder of Caffeine Marketing and Chief Marketing Officer of CaffeineLabs. He's passionate about helping business owners and entrepreneurs like his dad and grandfather succeed through marketing and business strategy. Thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for stopping by. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Great question. So I think for me, it starts off at a really young age. My grandfather started a jewelry store. And so I grew up, pretty much all up until 16 years old, going in with him or my dad to work. And so I saw entrepreneurs like my dad and my granddad struggling to grow their company. And I felt like, what I couldn't articulate at the time is that there's this glass ceiling or some point that they could not seem to pass on their own through grit and hard work. And so that had always kind of rested in my heart. And then about 4 years ago, my wife and I had moved from Charlotte to Atlanta, and I've been wanting to do something to help entrepreneurs and business owners like my dad and my grandfather. And I decided to start Caffeine Marketing. And so that was my first, hey, I'm going to help business owners like them to grow their company through marketing that's actually profitable, because a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they struggle and they just throw stuff at the wall hoping something is going to stick. So I wanted to give them a solution that they knew was actually going to be profitable for them and help them scale and grow their company to increase their quality of life.
That's awesome. And what's kind of like your journey in marketing before you founded it?
Yeah, I think I started off primarily with social media marketing. And I was more of a technician in that, actually creating the content, the social media strategy. And that was the natural transition to start Caffeine, was to try that social media marketing. But what I found was business owners at the end of the day, they care about growing the bottom line revenue. And so from there, it shifted into not just social media marketing, but what marketing strategy can we create so that these entrepreneurs are actually successful and grow their companies. So then that moved into web design, which our team does, paid advertising, sales funnel creation, email sequences, all across the board.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I think a lot of time solutions are cookie cutter in terms of businesses and very overpriced. So it doesn't necessarily position what the client's needs are. It just, let's give them everything. And like you said, even agencies I worked for, let's throw everything at the wall and hope it sticks.
Yeah, and that's super hard and scary. For business owners, this is their livelihood. This is possibly their retirement. And so if they don't have a predictable algorithm that they can run for every dollar that they put in, they're going to get $6 back. It feels really intimidating and scary. And so we want to help them with that.
Yeah, and then there's kind of the other side where something like social media may not have a tangible ROI right away, but you're building kind of brand equity and brand recognition over time. So events like a selling of a company or something where your product, gets acquired, that actually adds value for the price of the sale in terms of recognition in the market.
Yeah, totally. And there's a client that I was on the phone with earlier today, and we were talking to their website and their social media, and the quality of their social media before, we started working with them was extremely poor. And so when people go to work with these people, they're a law firm, and if they don't have that level of trust because the brand quality is low, they're not actually going to work with them, because you're expecting a lawyer to have a level of authority and trust and good branding. And so if that's not there, it undermines their entire operation.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I've worked with probably 400 law firms in the past. I actually started a good part of my career at LexisNexis, working on multi-law office firms across the nation. So, and it's also, like you said, it's how you're portrayed. If you want to be portrayed as a aggressive, business or firm, but the assets that are out there are more something that don't align with that. You're not, showing who you are and not attracting the right clients because that's not who they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those moments where you have to really I feel like I have to encourage my clients to think, hey, what's a customer worth to you? And not just a law firm, but let's say it's a B2B situation or a law firm where it's a high ticket sale. It's like, hey, the investment that you're going to make in your website, if it turns into 3 customers, it pays for itself. But it's that long-term thinking of, how much is this going to turn into an ROI for me?
Yeah, I agree. So what motivates you to succeed?
So having a wife and a kid to support definitely is a huge component of that. I think really I'm very tied into my dad, who passed away a little over 3 years ago. And so he honestly is like this almost a picture of my clients in a way. It's like, hey, he's no longer here on this earth. And so I can't necessarily help him and his company, but I can help all these other entrepreneurs and I can help all these other business owners. And there was probably a me out there who's the son or the kid of one of these entrepreneurs who wants their parents to be successful so that they're going to have a better quality of life. And so I think for me, I try to tie it back to my dad or even my grandfather who just retired this year is like, hey, how can I help these people who may not know where to go? Like the path forward to growth is uncharted and they feel scared. How can I make that transition for them really easy so that they feel peace in their business?
Yeah, I agree. And having, your why in whatever you're doing is important and adds clarity. I was close to my grandfather. He actually passed away this past year. So it's kind of, having those things in terms of hard work and, his journey in terms of what he did for really adding value to businesses large and small, because at the end of the day, small business is kind of the backbone of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the latest statistic that I read was 50% of all jobs are supplied by small business. But if you look at the number of businesses, it's like 97% of businesses in the US are small businesses, which is pretty wild to think about.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, those kind of marketing dollars hurt if it's not working a lot more than if you have some kind of, RFP with a huge company for 6-7 figures. Like, okay, they're spending that. And a lot of companies I worked with, Fortune 500s, Fortune 1000s, their marketing budget doesn't roll over. They have to spend it anyway. You know what I mean? So there's no personal effect where it's, the CMO of the company or the, VP of marketing. They're not, kind of pulling their hair out where they're going to pay their next bill and are they going to pay their employees? Yeah. They're simply, this didn't work. We're going to have another marketing budget next year. So,
yeah, or even next quarter. It's like, hey, we didn't hit this quarter. Well, then let's cut that vendor, add this vendor. Like, let's go from there. So it's a totally different field for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one thing you've seen in the past as a weakness in yourself that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
So there's this thing, it's called the Enneagram. I'd say most people have heard of it, but if you haven't, you should check it out. It's super cool. At first, I thought it was a little like hokey. Maybe I was like, okay, there's like 9 points. Everybody's going to fit at some point in this Enneagram thing. But, reading more about it, I found like it was just at least super helpful for me to understand more about me. And so I would be considered Enneagram 8. Enneagram 8 is super driven. Often they can, if they're not self-aware or they're not paying attention to how they interact with other people, they can kind of bulldoze people. And so this, Enneagram 8-ness, which is like just so much energy and drive, is honestly tripping me up a lot of the time because of how I interacted with other people, possibly people that I was leading. I look back all the time at stuff that I've done and I'm like, my goodness, thank you so much for being patient with me, because something that I've said still to this day. I mean, literally, I sent an email today where I apologized to someone who works for me. And I said, hey, I'm so sorry I didn't ask you about that. I just didn't even cross my mind. I just sent the email to the client. And I know that you're working on that project. And so I kind of overstepped you. So I apologize. So it's just stuff like that, that drive I've learned to hopefully pay attention to and harness that whenever I don't feel like doing stuff. Because sometimes work feels like work and I'm able to tap into that to actually get stuff done. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something you kind of get seasoned with age. And a lot of the time when you want to change or you want to kind of work on some of the things that you may have seen as a flaw in yourself or something that's been a weakness, time and maturity kind of heals that. And then time also, usually, not always, adds to the level of your emotional IQ. So you know how to, go into different situations a little differently. How do you communicate with your team, and understanding that people are coming from different situations that you may not know where they're coming from.
So I have an executive coach, professional coach or whatever, and we were talking, and she was talking about the levels of self-awareness and development. And the first one is like realizing after the fact. And so that's like stage one is like realizing how you made someone feel, what, your presence was, or how you said, all that stuff. So in the mirror. The next level is like reading the person real time. So like you said something and you're trying to see how they feel in that moment. And then the highest level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence is actually reading them and even thinking about how this is going to affect them when you say it. Hopefully I'm growing in that and have grown in that. So it's great.
Yeah, I think that third level is obviously, it's the last one, so it's the hardest to do. I think it's easier reflecting after, or in communication, if you know who you're going to communicate to, and you have some background. But I mean, it shouldn't be based on background, because somebody may have dropped the ball on something, or you misunderstood something, and your automatic reaction is something negative, or why'd you do that, or raising your voice. And just silencing that and taking a step back. Like I've had times where there's somebody sends a client or somebody a loaded email where it's just like, I just want to like get on the keyboard and just like give facts. Like that's not true, X, Y, Z, and just kind of destroy them passive aggressively. But taking a step back, like even taking a few minutes just to relax and gain your composure. Because I think when something like that happens, or you're dealing with an employee or any other relationship, if it's emotional driven, your judgment is clouded. So you're not going to have the same reaction as you step back, level off, and then deal with the situation.
And there's a great book by Simon Sinek. He's an author. And I think it's Leaders Eat Last. And he talks about how in stress, cortisol inhibits serotonin and oxytocin, which are the two chemicals that our brain uses to produce, like help us feel empathy. And so when we feel stressed out in those moments, it's like we almost can't even be empathetic for the client or our employees or whoever. So I feel like in those moments where I at least realize I'm stressed, I'm like, I need to chill it out so that I can try to understand how they feel and what they think in this scenario.
Yeah, and grounding yourself after the fact. I mean, the United States compared to other countries, one, has a far less amount of kind of free time that it allots for employees of companies. I mean, I know in Europe, some companies, bigger companies offer, 2 months, 3 months, maternity is like a year, paternity is like 6 months. So they really value an employee that's recharged and, mentally and physically is ready to go. I think changing kind of the stigma, and a lot of companies, big and small, started implementing different kind of like mental breaks, and a lot of companies have unlimited PTO. That doesn't mean they're, the people are gone for a year, but more of a flexible schedule, and offering different kind of incentives, and just being mindful of that anyone can burn out, and, a burned out employee isn't going to add value to the bottom line of your company.
And I think ultimately, like the more that corporations and business owners, that we can value the people that work for us, I think overall everyone is, like you said, they're going to get a better product, better service, all of that's going to help the bottom line. But I also think it helps people, and people matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, the companies that are succeeding are putting kind of their people and employees first. Not always, but usually I like to think that companies that don't treat the employees as valuable assets to their, to their enterprise will eventually kind of fizzle out.
Yeah.
So what's one piece of advice you have for the audience, personal or professional?
Oh my gosh, that's great. So this is not a pitch at all, but I'm, helping business owners with their marketing has been great. And I'm continuing to do that through my agency, Caffeine Marketing. But I've been looking at the other 90% of a business owner's life, the rest of their business operations and their their actual physical health, their mental health, and their leadership. And so I'm really excited to launch a new product. This is not a promo at all, but launch a new product that's going to help them in that. Because, I work with clients, and I'm sure that you've worked with some before, that their marketing is crushing it, but the rest of their business systems and operations are like, they're hemorrhaging like cash on the sides. And so there's so many revenue leaks. It's like marketing is not going to solve all your problems. You need to get your business operations down first, and your leadership, and just some self-awareness. So I would say the personal advice that I would say, it would be, hey, get 9 hours of sleep, or as just a baseline starting point. A lot of people, the average sleep for an American at least is under 7 hours. And so what that means is people are not getting enough REM sleep, so that they don't have the proper cognitive function the next day. And so for a lot of business leaders who possibly listen to this podcast, it's like, hey, the best thing you could do to level up in your leadership is just to get more sleep, so that you have that improved cognitive function. The other thing that I would recommend, that maybe the business side, would be write out a marketing funnel. Like, try to identify points along your customer's journey. I feel like a lot of business owners don't know what's currently working for them, or, this could be for a CMO as well. They don't know what's working. And so if something breaks, you don't know what to fix. So writing everything down, it doesn't have to be super complicated. You don't have to go find some Google document, but hey, get a piece of paper, write everything on the top is brand awareness. So how do people become aware of your brand? Then in the middle is consideration. What are the things that they're seeing afterwards to reinforce messages for people to work with you? And then lastly, what's conversion? What are the steps that you have, the incentives that you have, the sales funnels that you have in place to actually convert these people who are aware of your brand into customers? And if you know all those points, you can then increase your revenue generating activities and marketing platforms or sales funnels, whatever. But if you don't know, then it's going to be really hard to scale.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, I think there's other things in a business other than marketing. Like you said, you can really be doing very well in marketing, but you have a toxic executive team that makes all the wrong decisions and just tanks a company year over year, or you may not have, like you said, the right systems, or things that could be automated aren't, or vice versa. So kind of auditing your processes, what your employees deliver, your executive team, and all those other things that kind of add to the bottom line other than marketing. And I think making some changes or plugging holes in that sense. And then, like you said, understanding what's working for you in terms of marketing. So at least have an idea of what it delivered. If it's brand awareness, okay, it's brand awareness. If it's direct sales, it's direct sales, and kind of doubling down and, increasing spend if something's really working. And if it's not, then either stop it or, try something else. Just because a channel also isn't working doesn't mean the channel itself doesn't work for you. Your campaign may have not been properly executed in terms of the proper audience, the proper, copy, the proper ads. So you have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think you're so right on the last part is like, hey, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, just because the way that you're doing Facebook ads right now, or the way that you're doing Google ads is not working, doesn't mean that platform is not worth it. It's just the way that it's currently being executed may not be working. And you saying that reminds me of someone I was on the phone with recently, and we were talking about their current marketing strategy and what all they're doing. And they list off a dozen different things. They're like on different listings and different websites. No kidding, a dozen different things that they're doing. And then they start throwing in things like, yeah, we're in this like local mailer. And I'm like, are you tracing the return on investment for any of this? Are you just literally throwing money out the wall like we talked about earlier? The excuse was, and I'm trying to help the person. The excuse was, oh, well, it's just not that much money to do the mailer. I'm like, okay, several $100s is, for some companies, yeah, for sure. It's not that much money, a couple $100s a month, but still, like, imagine what you could do for the people that work with you. Like, if you could just get them snacks or gym membership, like how you could spend that money to actually grow your bottom line in your employees. So a couple $100, man, that still matters.
Yeah, or at least, like you said, do the proper tracking. Like, this is inherent with billboards too. A lot of billboards don't have a unique call tracking number and don't have a shortened URL to go to something in terms of you're actually tracking. So you may be spending $10,000 a month, and you're being told like the traffic through that is let's say 100,000 people a month see this. Okay, well that's cool, but literally you're not doing the simple steps that would probably take you 5 minutes to implement, and you can actually like see the value of an effort.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they just don't know, right? Like they don't know that they just feel stuck in some binary thinking. It's either you can track it or you can't. And so maybe when they think of a billboard, they don't go, oh, you can't track that. How are you supposed to track that? And they just keep putting money into it. But you're so right. I mean, a simple idea is to, hey, create a Bitly link or some sort of shortened URL that they see on the billboard or the phone call. And then you could, if you have a unique phone number, you could track the cost per phone call or the cost per click to your website and make some pretty intelligent decisions from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people at companies that aren't in marketing roles, and even people that are in marketing roles, oftentimes, understand somewhat of a concept, but not tactics or, the strategy behind it. So if they don't understand it, they're not going to tackle it or address it, or may feel like they don't need to speak on it in front of their boss to not sound like educated, that they, perceive that they know something. So I think there's a lot of reasons, but I think at the end of the day, also, if your agency or you're in-house, like the bottom line, you're trying to get the company to succeed, and you're a business partner essentially. So if the company succeeds, you succeed as a business as well. Yeah.
You reminded me of a leadership principle that I absolutely love, is that my favorite people that work with me and for me is their responsibility is greater than their job description. And so what that means is, they on paper, they have, say they're executing social media posts or writing blog posts or copy or web design, whatever. That's their job description. They're supposed to execute that. But I love when people have a greater job responsibility than their job description, which means that they are just like, they care about the company. They care about the bottom line. They care about a project being successful. And so they have to, in those moments, just like you were saying, they have to speak up even when it's scary, because either their boss or their supervisor, whatever, is thinking otherwise. If their responsibility is greater than their job description, they're going to speak into things that maybe they're not the expert on, but they have an intelligent opinion because they care about the company or the project or the people around them.
Yeah, and I think soft skills and actually like empathy or caring are hard to teach, because at the end of the day, if somebody wants to learn something, you can really just teach them that. So if you sometimes get a veteran, doesn't have to be a veteran, a person that says they know something and may have a big ego, that ultimately kind of that all-star player may drag the entire team down. Whereas you bring somebody in, you teach them, they develop over time to that level and actually add more value to your team than somebody that, just came in that you thought was this all-star person.
Yeah, absolutely. Emotional intelligence is very hard to teach, but hands-on technician skills are a lot easier.
Yep. So I really appreciate you coming on today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Yeah. So the easiest way, if you want to partner with our agency, is caffeine.marketing. There's no .com at the end, so it's just caffeine.marketing. But if you're interested in that course that I was talking about earlier, about the other 90% of running a business and how to do the successful in your business and your leadership and the rest of yourself, you can just go to evanknox.com and you can find out more there.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.